Until the middle of the 17th century, houses in Glasgow were mainly built from timber and covered with thatch, except those of the rectors and a few others that were built of stone. Even for houses that were in part constructed of stone, the fronts to the streets were mostly composed of timber. On 17th June 1652, a great fire broke out in the city, destroying nearly a third of the town, with many families having to hastily build huts in nearby fields. It raged for 18 hours, and many lives were lost. The fire had started in the house of James Hamilton in the High Street. It was blamed on an English soldier who'd accidentally started it. A minute of the town council of 22nd June that year summed up the loss. After, it was found that nearly 80 or 80 closes all burned, affecting around 1,000 families, and that was around a third of the 12,000-strong population at the time. Unless a speedy remedy was found to help those poor people, it was feared the town would become a ruin. On this occasion, the magistrates ordered church doors to be opened, not for shelter, but for the benefit of the people in a religious capacity. A plea for financial assistance was made throughout Scotland to help those affected by the fire, with money coming in from Ayr, Edinburgh, Aberdeen and Linlithgow. The General Assembly of the Church of Scotland also gave its permission for churches to receive money. The funds collected were distributed by a committee of the town council, and every street in the city was appointed a quartermaster. Their job was to make inventories of houses and goods lost. In making grants to assist in rebuilding, a limited amount was allowed if the windows were to be built with dales, and a larger amount if they were to be built of stone. Masons and wrights from Glasgow had their wages capped, but those coming in from other areas would also receive the same rate of pay. The construction of the new builds prohibited overhanging frontages as a safety precaution. What contributed to the devastation was the unseasonable wind. It was strong and came from the northwest, fanning the flames onto other nearby properties. They easily caught fire. It spread along the Trongate and Gallowgate, reaching the Brigate and south to the Salt Market. People did their best by forming human chains to pass buckets of water along to try and extinguish the flames. The city called for help from the government, as the cost ran into thousands of pounds. It sent just 1,000. It was a drop in the ocean. The occupying Cromwellian army did accept blame for starting the fire in the first place. The soldiers helped to both clear the debris and with the rebuilding programme. Following the blaze, candle makers were moved to the fringes of the city. But the old style of construction continued, and 15 years later, another great fire broke out, in which 136 houses and shops were destroyed. On the night of 2nd–3rd November 1677, a fire began in the Salt Market, and was blamed on a smith's young apprentice, who it was claimed began it maliciously. It was said the smith had beaten him and threatened him, so in the middle of the night he'd set the place on fire. However, there is another story that claims an English soldier who was garrisoned in the city had fired his flintlock pistol, and the sparks had set a thatched roof on fire. Whatever the reason, it was again destructive. On that occasion, The heat was so great at the cross that it set fire to the clock of the toll booth, and people broke open its doors and liberated the prisoners, who were in danger of being burned to death. One of their number was the Laird of Kersland, Robert Kerr, who'd been imprisoned for his part in the Pentland Rising of 1666, a short-lived rebellion against Charles II and Episcopalianism in Scotland's churches. Between 600 and 700 families were made homeless, while the fire ravaged homes, shops, warehouses and workshops as it swept through the salt market, nearly destroying it all. It also damaged part of the Trongate and Gallowgate. It caused a great distress. In the town magistrate minutes of 4th December 1677, it noted, "The great impoverished of this borough is reduced to throw the sad and lamentable woe occasioned by fire on the 2nd of November last, that God in his justice hath suffered this borough to fall under, and likewise the most part of the said borough being eyewitness twice to this just punishment for our inequalities by this rod, which we pray him to make us sensible, of that we may turn from the evil of our ways to himself, so that never again would the city come under his wrath." A month later, the council proceeded to statute and ordain that each person proceeding to rebuild was obliged to do so by stonework from head to foot, back and fore, without any timber or dale, except in the inset thereof, which was understood to be partitions, windows, cupboards and such like, before anyone could move in. Never again did the council want to see such devastation in their city. After the first great fire in Glasgow, the city fathers procured a fire engine. The magistrates had heard that Edinburgh possessed one, probably the first in Scotland, and they sent someone to see what kind of machine it was. The first proper engine they got was in 1725, made in London. After the two great fires, the houses erected within the borough were more carefully constructed, and the magistrates appeared to have again given permission to encourage a better kind of building. A fund was set up to help those whose houses were burned with what was known as the burnt money. In 1684, another fire occurred in the Gallowgate, and in the absence of an efficient fire engine, the device resorted to was the taking of wet hides and spreading them over the sides and thatched roofs of the adjacent houses to prevent the spread of the fire. John Woodrop was later compensated for the use of his hides, which had been taken from his tan pit. If you enjoyed this episode of Scotland's History, please like, comment and subscribe. Until next time, thank you for watching.